Good evening, folks. I think we're ready to get started. Thanks for being here. Let's call this meeting to order at 5:01 p.m. on Wednesday, February 7th, 2024. First thing we're going to do is take roll.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll go ahead and start down the list. Acevedo here. Baker here. Brady, absent. Carlson here. Cefalia, excused. Clougherty here. DeSantis here. Guter here. Hayes here. Klob here. Kobayashi here. Laidlaw here. Love, absent. Maniscalchi here. Meng here. Mosier here. Pearson here. Robert Rader excused. Rolfs, absent. Scarborough here. Snyder here. Hey, this happened last time. Stevens here. Wahlberg absent. Watkins here. Williams absent. Let the record reflect we do have a quorum with also Co-Chair Evans and Co-Chair Greer present. Thank you. Also, point of order, please make sure to use the microphones. We had to do inaudible in the minutes last time, and that's not a preferred approach, so make sure you're using the microphones. Thank you.
I have a question. I noticed you didn't call Curtis Black.
Thank you. Oversight. Curtis Black, excused absence. Thank you.
Lynn Selich is here now.
Okay. Not everybody's accounted for. I'll move on to item 3, public comments on non-agenda items. Any public comments? None? Okay, Mosier, please.
Yeah. I thought some meetings back there was going to be a standing agenda item for the committee members to reconsider their subcommittee assignments. And I haven't seen, and I believe not only have there been some new assignments, but I believe some of the staff liaison assignments have been changed. So I think that would be a good item to bring back at the next meeting. And I think also it would be useful probably to post the current and keep current the roster, perhaps on the city website for the committee, or either on, perhaps better, on Newport Together, so that the public will, if they have an interest, will know what staff person to reach out to.
No, thank you, Jim. Appreciate that. We'll definitely do that. I think maybe for that first item too, could be done offline as well if folks have an interest in changing as well. So thank you for that. Okay, next issue or item of business is approving of the meeting minutes from January 10th, 2024. We do have some additions and comments from Mr. Mosier, so thank you for that. We will incorporate those changes in to the minutes. So can I get a motion to approve the minutes with those changes included?
Motion to approve.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. A second? Okay, we got Nancy with the second. Jim, you have some comments, please?
The only comment was, as staff liaison Sadiba pointed out, if committee members read the minutes, there were a number of comments that were unattributed because the transcriber did not know who was speaking, and some of the comments were inaudible, so they're not in the minutes. So I would suggest, if anyone is interested in going over that and attributing the comments to themselves, we defer them to the next meeting. If nobody's interested in that, then I certainly support the motion.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mosier. Okay, so we have a first, we have a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. All right, moving on to item B under section 4. This is Vision Statement Subcommittee Recap. We're going to start with the chair of the Vision Statement Subcommittee. I do have one real quick item of business. I have a meeting at 6 p.m. I'm presenting to, hope I'm saying this right, is it Gonzaga? To their sports program. So if I have to leave a little bit early, our co-chair is going to take over. So, all right. So, vision statement. Do we have a report from the chair of the vision statement? That's Debbie. Please. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair Evans.
I'm going to do just quickly that this is important because it kind of provides it provides the goals and objectives and where we want to be with this general plan. So even though it seems like a little, I don't know, some people could see it as a little bit squishy, but it really provides, as we'll hear Elizabeth in a second, the North Star, and drives us in terms of the decisions that you make on when you start putting the rest of the general plan together. So I understand that, Elizabeth, you have some slides for us, so let's do that part first.
Can you hear me? Oh, there we go. Thank you, Chair Stevens. All right, so we did provide a presentation to the Vision Statement Subcommittee last week where we really walked them through the vision statement analysis. So I'm just going to give you a brief version of that presentation. And just for a little bit of context, Debbie was really speaking to this, but the purpose of this analysis, it's a little bit different than some of the other analyses that we're doing for this process, in part because the vision statement is not an element of the general plan. So what this analysis really serves as is a tool to guide us through the outreach process, but also a tool for all of us involved in this process so we understand what the vision statement is and how we're going to get to our draft vision statement. So first, let's just start with what the vision statement is. The vision statement is really the foundation from which all of the other decisions in the general plan update are formed. So the way the vision statement is written, as it's written in present tense as an intended end state. So for the future, it's basically what we would like to see Newport Beach be through the implementation of the updated general plan. So the way that we develop the vision statement is we're going to be looking at the feedback that we receive through our outreach and engagement. We're looking at the data analyses for each of the respective elements in the general plan topics. And we're going to be really wanting to hear from all of you as well as the community on those values and aspirations. And then once we develop that draft vision statement, we're going to be looking to that as our North Star, our guiding light, as we develop the goals, policies, and programs of the general plan update. So every time we're developing those, we're going to be looking to the vision statement to say, is this aligned with the overall vision that we're looking to achieve? All right, and within this analysis, we've also highlighted the adopted 2025 vision statement. That might sound a little bit confusing, so let me clarify. This is the adopted vision statement in your 2010 general plan, which is called the 2025 vision statement because it sets the intended end state for the year 2025. So really the purpose of this, and we're going to be working with the vision statement subcommittee to assess the already adopted vision statement so that we can get an understanding of what the community feels like has been achieved, what maybe fell short, what is maybe missing, and maybe what isn't relevant or is still relevant in this. And this matters from a community perspective, largely because the vision statement itself, it's not tangible. It's really how you feel about what's been achieved. So that's where, again, this is kind of different from the other analyses. And then really the process for this general plan update that we're going to be going through to get to our vision statement. We're doing our regulatory and data analysis. We're really assessing those key findings to understand those existing conditions. We've already started to look to some future trends, but we're also hearing from the vision statement subcommittee on some future trends that they're anticipating, and we'll also be hearing from the community on future trends that they're expecting as well. And then also we'll be identifying through the outreach and engagement what those community values are, what the vision really is at the end of the day. And that's how we will get to our general plan update statement. So that's all I have for those.
Thank you, Elizabeth. One thing I just wanted to say, to me, the best way to look at this is the matrix in the back, because it contains, where it says existing, it contains the existing vision statements that are in the general plan, and then next to it is more the thoughts that we're thinking of. Some of these are going to be things that I think are still going to stick with us. Things like what's special about this community? Well, the beaches and the harbors and the bays are obviously still very important. They're going to remain important. Some things need to change. Growth, land use, and development is a good example. We start saying we've got a conservative growth strategy. Well, we need to be in step with what's going on at the state level and that kind of stuff. Some things are just a little also out of date would be things like circulation. So circulation is very heavily related in our previous statement to cars and pedestrians and stuff like that. And we really need to think about this a little bit differently now, kind of more like the complete streets, the full transportation. At that time we didn't think about Uber. One thing that seems missing to me is there's no discussion of ocean modes of travel, which are kind of important here. And technology plays a big role in some of this. Other things like community services, recreation, boats and waterways, a lot of that's going to be pretty similar because it's what makes this special, and I think most people could agree on it. But in general, I think everybody has a different idea of the vision of Newport Beach, and we've got to try and collect all of that and put it all together. Lastly, I do want to say that there are things that are just generally missing from the general plan because they weren't important at the time. Things like environmental justice, our environmental stewardship and coastal resiliency, which we've also called sustainability. That stuff wasn't really talked about, but it is more important. Some of the other things. So that's kind of the emerging trends. But we need to go forward to the public with something. We can't just say what's important to Newport Beach. It's more like, this is what we're thinking is important to Newport Beach, at least from our perspective, and give them something to respond to. And we think with that, it'll make it a lot easier of a conversation to have with the public. So I think that's what I wanted to say. I don't know if the members of the subcommittee have anything else they want to say. And I guess, we can open it for public discussion.
All right. Thank you, Debbie. I'm glad that you're leading that subcommittee, so thank you. You're doing an awesome job. Any comments from anybody on that? Okay, seeing none. I would like to, so we've received that report, no feedback. So I guess we can move on to the next item, which is Outreach Subcommittee, which is attachment 3 in the packet. There's some additional memos in there. So I'd like to turn it over to the chair of that committee and then, of course, over to... Okay, Annie, my friend, how you doing? All right.
How are you? So we met as an outreach committee, and thank you for those of you who did the survey, because there was 14 people who did the survey that was the basis of where we should discuss to focus our efforts. So for those of you that don't know, there is a budget of 10 pop-ups and 20 go-to meetings as part of that. So a pop-up could be the farmer's market where somebody's there talking about it. A go-to would be like a Newport Coast HOA meeting. So knowing that we had 10 pop-ups, which are the more, expensive, detailed, planned ones, and then 20 go-tos, we took everybody's suggestions, which are in here. If you look at when they do the slides, the top event priorities, and we had a lengthy discussion for pop-up recommendations and go-to meetings. And I do think we have a great outreach committee that even we discussed, we have residents in that committee that are from Newport Coast all the way down to the peninsula, and then in different age brackets too. So what might be important to somebody, for example, a library lecture, and then somebody else would be, a younger demographic with kids. So I really think that we got a great snapshot of what we are hoping to achieve. We have a general calendar from right now, February through maybe June, July, it sounds like. And then they're going to start planning accordingly. I'll let them take it from here and do a quick snapshot of that. And then I think the biggest thing that I'm excited about, and they can show you today, is the social calendar, which is going to be a great addition, I think, to the website element as far as outreach when meeting other citizens to get them engaged in the general plan and outreach. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Annie. Jennifer J. Maldonado with Kearns and West on the DUDEC team. I think, okay, I'm going to go forward a little bit. Close your eyes. We'll get there. Okay, so just to share a little bit, to mention what Annie talked about, we had 14 responses from the GPAC, which is a great response. Some things we looked at really was focusing on events. So folks responded to events from March to December 2024. As the chair mentioned, we are focusing on February to May and a little bit into June. Then the top focus for folks really was making sure that we're getting out to arts events, farmers markets, harbor social events, libraries. And then as part of the responsiveness here, the subcommittee really brainstormed potential ideas of places that we can reach out to for and join for pop-up events. And we listed these here, and again, this is something that we'll be reaching out to and looking forward to planning. But the chair mentioned all of the different types of things we'll be mindful of in terms of scheduling those activities as well. And then one thing that I did want to share here, we have a screenshot of this is from Newport Together, the website. This isn't live. This is something that is just in draft form that we wanted to share with folks, that when we do go out and start doing the pop-up events and the go-to meetings, we will have an active survey online, which will be a mapping activity. And as part of this, we would direct folks as part of our outreach and engagement to the website with focused ads in newspapers, social media, press releases, announcements through City Council, through this GPAC, and really getting folks information about Newport Together and kind of launching it. And as part of it, there's a mapping survey. So we ask people to put specific symbols on the map to identify different things that they're thinking about with Newport Beach. So we just heard about the vision. So there are pieces of what do people love, and places that they love and they appreciate, opportunity areas that can be improved, and general comments. And so you can't see it here because this is just a still shot, but once folks click on add marker, they'll click the symbol they want to click on and add it to there too. And we'll be monitoring that and just having some really good input through that visual map. So that's all I have for tonight. I'll turn it back over to Annie.
We did see an example of it, and it was very user-friendly. For anyone concerned about that or wondering, it was very user-friendly, and there was no sign-in or anything. So I personally thought it was great, and I'll leave it to any of my other committee members if they had any thoughts.
Please.
Yes, I have some thoughts. These are items that I see that I know that you would want to include in your outreach, because they all will draw thousands of Newport Beach residents from all 7 districts. And they would be the following: Art in the Park, which is September 14th, 2024. The opening of the Newport Beach Historical Society opening day at the Fun Zone, which is April 2024, their new headquarters and museum. And then June 29th, 2024, the Newport Beach Art Exhibition is an annual event with a 55-year tradition. And opening day of Sculpture Exhibition Phase 9 in the Sculpture Garden. That event will draw thousands as well. And also the Newport Beach Film Festival, which is typically held in the middle of October. That is all over town, and there are events that circle around it, and people from the community definitely attend in the thousands. The City Arts Commission is also sponsoring their summer concert series on the Green. Each of those concerts typically drive about 5,000 people to the Green out there every summer. There'll be 3 in the months of June, July, August, and September, with the last concert down on Marina Park, which is an opportunity to have people from that district, from the 1st district. I think one of the biggest draws in this community. Everyone loves a parade. So the Balboa Island Parade is a big draw. Lots of people come. It's a great opportunity to have a pop-up before the parade because people do hang out for about 2 hours prior to the parade and then the entire day on the island. The Balboa Island Art Walk is another that I saw somewhere in your material, but I didn't see it here on the pop-up recommendations. And there are concerts that are held by the Balboa Island Improvement Association that are funded by the City Cultural Arts. They are at the Beak Park and then the St. Vianney Church on the island, which is typically a little more classical in its presentation. So that concludes my comments and additions. I'm sure you'd want to include these things, and you'll have the tape for that.
Can I just comment on that? We actually hit every single one of those except for 2. So we discussed it, and why it might not be listed is we were really focusing on February through May or June, so that's probably what you're seeing. So anything after that we had discussed but didn't necessarily mark that. The 2 we didn't, I think, discuss that we can add is the Balboa Island Parade, and then the other one would be the museum on at the Fun Zone. Yeah, and that might also just be because of the dates. But everything else it was in there, but it might just be because of the dates. Like, because we were focused on February, am I correct, through May, kind of. And then, and because, again, we're being mindful of the budget, that we can only do 10 pop-ups, and we have to do those 10 pop-ups within the year, and then 20 go-tos. So we're not going to be able to hit everything because of budget. You know, we encourage anyone that's really passionate about outreach that you can absolutely do any of those on your own and go and, you know, talk to the community. But as far as what we're budgeted for, we're going to be doing 10, which it takes a lot of work and reach out throughout the year is what's budgeted. And I would consider every single one of those is a pop-up, wouldn't you think?
Yes.
Yes.
And I will note that we do have a long list, but I didn't have 2 of those on there, so I added them on. So they might not be in the packet like was mentioned, but they are captured too.
Missing also on the go-to meeting recommendations. One is the Corona Del Mar annual meeting that is typically held in the spring of each year, and that brings a lot of people from the Newport community. And you may even want to talk with Debbie Stevens, who's on our committee, about perhaps maybe that could even be the highlight of the meeting this year. They always have a speaker that has some community important event that circles around it. And then there's also one more parade, and that's in the pop-up area, would be the Lido Peninsula, parade in the summer as well. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Annie. Thank you. Comments, please. I think I saw you, Paul, first.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. You guys have already thought, I'm sure, of Speak Up Newport, which I think is the third Wednesday of the month, and then Wake Up Newport is the first Thursday of the month. And in addition to that, and again, Annie, this is way, way out, but the first Saturday of December is the Christmas walk. And Corona Del Mar gets a ton of Corona Del Mar Library, the branch library down there on Marigold, gets a ton of people. So you might add that as a future suggestion. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Can we get a microphone to you? Thank you.
Hi. Okay. I'm Virginia Anders Elmore. I'm a resident of Newport Shores. I think a way to advertise these things would be to connect with your HOAs, because I know ours sends out like a monthly newsletter, and you could be advertising your pop-ups. You could be the whole idea educating people of that areas. And so, what is there, 100 and some HOAs here? We could really reach a lot of people.
Good idea. Okay, Susan, please.
To piggyback on what Paul was referencing, Speak Up Newport, there is the mayor's dinner coming up, which I'm sure many of you have been to, on February 29th. And that is a wide audience who we would not normally come in contact with. So it would be, I think, very appropriate to be able to say something during that event, and maybe have, I think one, and this may be a collateral material that could be developed, is like a business card where you just have a general plan update with the information, how to contact and reach information on the city website. Just a suggestion.
Thanks, Susan. David, do you have something? Oh, okay, Ruth, please.
Test.
Thank you. Thank you for all the work that you've done, and I'll throw my hand up as somebody who meant to do the survey and drop the ball. But in keeping in mind with the things that you want and the timing that you want, and this may be too late, but I was just going to suggest the CDM High School home tour, which much of a bunch of it happens here, is on March 14th. I don't know when the Newport Harbor one is. I think it's usually a month or two after, but it would still be in your time frame, because I would love to see that there's a lot of focus on people that are 20 years younger than most of us in this room. Because a lot of the ones that I'm hearing about, I might go to, but people with little kids would not go to those. So thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Nancy, you, and then you. All right.
One thing, I like the idea about the cards. I think a QR code to get to the websites on all of this material would be very helpful, especially to younger generation. They're not going to keep a card. They're going to do a QR code and throw the card away. Second would be maybe we could come up with a way that people who wanted to go to those events anyway could have, we could have a setup for a table that we could, have implemented at each of those, and there could be members of this committee who are going to be there anyway, and they could spend an hour at a table just handing out information and answering questions. That might be one way to expand our budget, since we only get to do 10 of these. And the third thing is, how will this information be reported back to us here? Because there will be a lot of feedback, but it really needs to come back to this group so that we can use that information when we're putting together these elements. That's my comments.
Thanks, Nancy. Debbie, please. Or did you have something?
I do.
Okay, please, quickly.
So just a quick follow-up. Annie, I've actually already talked to Rick Kyle, who runs the Corona Del Mar Farmers Market, and he's all up for it because they're trying to get more involved with the community. So that's just FYI. And I said, you'll hear from somebody else besides me, but FYI.
Thank you,
on the Corona Del Mar Residents Association, our guest speaker is Nancy Gardner. And yes, it will be a topic, so, and everybody's invited. It is the Corona Del Mar, but nonetheless, everybody's invited. So I want to say that we were already thinking that way. It's kind of an important topic. So, as well as some other, Lauren Kleiman will be there to discuss updates. But anyway, so April 2nd. Thank you.
Thanks, Debbie. Please.
Thank you. My name is Chuck Fancher. I'm here as a member of the public. And on the topic of outreach, not on the topic of pop-ups, which is its own subject, but I recall earlier, and I've been in many of your sessions and the steering committee sessions as a member of the public, I recall earlier discussion on community forums as a way to have a topic presented to the community, perhaps through a sponsor. Paul's idea on Speak Up Newport or other such organizations would be a channel for doing that. But a focused topic like sea rise, like flooding, like how do we have been, and Jaime talk about how do we reduce traffic in the city, but topics that would generate public interest and become an opportunity for outreach to speak to its participants about the general plan update. Focused community forum sessions.
Great idea. Okay, Dennis, please. Or Nicholas, whoever was first. Okay.
Okay, so one of the things I want to remind everybody of, and also ask a question regarding it, is budget was mentioned a couple times. So I'm on the committee, and if we do every single one that has been mentioned here, I think we're going to go over budget a little bit. So the two questions are, how do we deal with that? Otherwise, we maybe at the committee could use some guidance on that. And also, is there any squish on the budget? That's the other thing. Otherwise, right now we're budgeted 10 and 20, 10 pop-ups, 20 go-tos. So, like I said, I'm hearing a lot of good suggestions. And then the third thing is maybe we could do this at the committee level, should think about a third thing. Those we have pop-ups, go-tos, and maybe there's something else that might be like a kit. You know, there's a kit they put together where it doesn't require any personnel to go there, but it's provided to a homeowners association, something like that, where they would actually put the information out. So those are my thoughts on this.
Thank you. I wonder if we could use social media, or can we not do that for the city? I don't know. To at least promote the events, but that might be a third option. Nicholas, did you have something too?
Yeah, I guess kind of building on what you're saying, Dennis, of that third thing. I just want to know, it doesn't seem like there's any mention that I've seen in here, and correct me, I mean, I've only read it quickly, but of that, you know, online marketing, and how are we getting to a variety of groups very quickly at a very low cost. I think these are targeted, but you know, how do you get to a broader range? Whether that's, I don't know, however the city's able to advertise, I think is a way to look at that, or asking other groups to advertise for that then push it to multiple users. I think is one. Tied with that, part two is, I see on here that I think online, I think that's great, how you can get feedback. This interface looks fun, looks nice. Is there a way to distinguish between residents versus non-residents? Because I think that actually has some input value, and how much we do get a significant amount of tourists, that should have some value, but I think that needs to be analyzed from the whole committee of residents versus non-residents.
Thank you, Nicholas. Annie, please.
So sorry, I just want to make sure, because first off, to go to Nancy's comment about a QR code, it was discussed. Mr. Carlson actually brought in some examples of like a flyer with a QR code, and we've given it to Dudek to kind of, they're the professionals, basically design something and come back to us. Easy QR code, it's in the works, so we'll be able to report on that. Social media was also brought up as well. A lot of our city council have very robust social media that people read all the time. It was brought up. So it was basically, once I think we have kind of a great landing site, once, you know, they're building up the website, we're all making sure we're on the same page, and then have that QR code to go to. And then once we feel like that was strong, you know, present that, or have people that know people in city council or running for various, you know, districts, be able to share that was, and post about it and talk about it was also discussed. And I think I answered it all, but I'll have you guys comment on the rest of it.
To build on it a little bit, sometimes we might not talk about the online engagement piece of how we're communicating, but just to share, we have a really robust press kit that has the social media press releases, talking points for the mayor, city council, talking points for you all, HOA communications, and then like a toolkit that other organizations can use images and language to share out as well. So, and ads in local, in like the Daily Pilot, Stu News, the log, you know, just all those pieces that we're thinking about. So want to know, we're really mindful of that, but I appreciate folks bringing it up, because it is something that we want to make sure is heard really well throughout the community. Yeah.
And one note is our lovely speaker over there from Dudek is also going to be doing a quick like elevator pitch and presenting it, so that all of us, she was sick during our meeting, so thank you for being here, but I think that's forthcoming, where that if anyone asks you questions about general plan, or you're in a position so that you can speak very clearly about it, is she was going to do that and then present it at one of our meetings, or email it out, so that we could all have that as a point of reference.
Yeah, so like a training on facilitating a meeting, public speaking, and just a little bit about the general plan. Just 5 minutes that you can access on demand, because these go-to meetings we're talking about, it most likely and hopefully is going to be a lot of that being GPAC led. So going to your organizations and meetings that you know, and then making sure that you have the tools and resources to share out about your community.
Okay. One more comment, please.
Yes, one more comment. You might also reach out via the police and fire. They do open houses throughout the year, and neighborhood watches. They've become very active, especially in Newport Coast more recently. And mobile cafes, yes, in the city.
All right. Thanks, Arlene. Annie, again, thanks for leading this committee. Doing a great job, so thanks. Okay, so, oh yeah, Nancy, please. Oh, Jim, yes.
First of all, I would like to say I agree with Chuck Fancher that I think a community forum would be a useful thing, even if it's not in our plan currently. We attempted it without great success back in 2019, I think. But based on failure, sometimes you can do better. So maybe we could do that more effectively than before. Offering hamburgers does bring out a lot of people, but maybe not engaged in what we want. And then and incidentally, the current general plan, which is actually the 2006 rather than 2010 general plan, it began with a community visioning festival before there even was a GPAC. So there had been outreach before there even was a committee to try to implement that vision. And then the other comment, which I tried to express in writing as a comment on the previous minutes, is I think it's very important in all this outreach, wherever it occurs, that the messaging distinguish what this committee is doing and what we're seeking input on from the separate city-driven amendment process that's going to lead to an election in November, because people, once they hear about the election, they're wondering, what did their input have to do with that? And I think currently, if we're just directing people to the Newport Together website, it's kind of in there, but you really have to search deeply to discover that there is a second separate process going on. So I think it really has to be highlighted that there are two different general plan update processes going on, and ours is different from the one going to an election in November.
Thank you, Jim. Chuck, thank you again, too. Great comments. And unless there's nothing else, Susan, please.
Is this on? Yeah, okay. I just wanted to reinforce what Jim and Charles were recommending in terms of the forum. And prior to this year, I think it might have been the last meeting in December, I think there was intended to be a presentation on the Future Trends Report. And it didn't happen. If you recall the meeting we had, we got stuck and we didn't get through the agenda. But I think there was intended to be a presentation by our consultant team on the Planning and Future Trends Report, so that we would all be on the same page regarding those trends and how they affect the various elements that we're going to be engaged in working on. And that also ties in with the idea of the community forum, the forum idea, and also the idea that we had discussed previously about bringing in some thought leaders in terms of understanding those future trends. And I'm hoping we're still going to be doing that.
Good comments. Please, Lynn.
Just quickly, as it relates to our messaging, and especially if we do have a public forum where the general public comes and is asking questions, either you or us, is to be able to answer things. And this just, I thought of this just now reading Mr. Mosier's comments, but I do think it's going to be important for us to, because the housing element is not part of our purview, or it's been pulled from our purview, is that we be able to answer questions about how is the high density housing that's already been approved, that we do not have jurisdiction over, if you will, as part of a big part of the general plan and how the city is going to look in the future. We should be able to answer the question, how is it expected that this high density housing is going to influence all of the things that we're talking about in this general plan? Because we've already got traffic issues, we already got other issues that we're dealing with. So we want to be able to answer those questions, whether it's, the transportation in the bus form, trolley form, whatever that's going to be, but be very clear on there are some elements of this that we can't answer that. I wouldn't know how to answer those questions. So I think we all need to think through what are the answers to questions like, how is the high density housing going to affect this city? How did it affect how you decided on this plan, what this is going to look like for the next 10, 15, 20, 50 years? So I think that's really important. Also things like if the state succeeds with, for example, what is happening with the ferry, what's the answer to if the ferry goes away, then what, right? If there are elements that are affected, that will affect this general plan, that I think we should have the answers to either side. If the ferry stays, here's how it's going to look. If the ferry goes away, here's how it's going to look. And then also don't forget about other projects going on, like the Orange County Sanitation District, pumping station expansion. There's other things going on that over a shorter but long term, over the next 4 or 5, if it doesn't get delayed type of thing, like let's keep that in the back of our minds as we go through and we try to come up with this messaging that we keep these things that are not in our purview. They are going to be the questions that we're asked.
Thank you, Lynn. And I'm told by staff, too, that there'll be a fact sheet put together for a lot of things that you were talking about, so thanks. Dennis, quickly, please.
I brought this up before, and it's been brought up, but to Mr. Mosier's point, as recent as last week, I've heard again that we get to vote on the general plan test, and that's a general belief out there. They don't get it. And I'm really concerned about that because sometimes people are not going to necessarily engage in putting together the general plan, figuring, oh, you guys will all put it together and then we'll give it a thumbs up for that. You don't get that chance. And I think that point is not being made clearly enough. We do not get to vote on the general plan. We get to vote in November on a piece of the general plan. Thank you.
Good point, Dennis. Thank you. Nancy, please.
I would just say that one of the responses to me of this whole thing is, this is the group, and what you do is what alleviates what the state is asking us to do. There's so many things that we can do here, if we do it right, that will actually make things better than if we didn't have a general plan and all these other elements that are working. Yeah, we can't change the numbers necessarily, but we can do everything possible to make the impact as slight as possible, and in this process, improving some other things that we haven't even touched on. So I agree, we have to have an answer, but it's not negative here, what we're doing at all.
Thanks, Nancy. Okay, great comments on that. The only thing I was going to add, too, was the Chamber of Commerce meetings that are local. I serve on the Corona Del Mar Chamber of Commerce board, and it'd be easy to set up. They do like a good morning thing. Your name actually came up as potentially presenting, so you got a good reputation over there, so... all right, so no action items on that, but we had some great comments. We're going to move to item D under section 4. We have a quick presentation on the overview of upcoming deliverables and objectives.
Test, there we go. Thank you. Elizabeth Dixon, again, I didn't introduce myself earlier, Elizabeth Dixon with DUDEC. Just a brief overview of the overall schedule with some of our key deliverables. I know that you saw this at the last meeting, but we're just going to keep bringing it up. We are doing outreach and engagement throughout this entire process. We're still on track for a total of a 2-year process, and we're really in this first phase at this point. So we're doing all of our background analyses. We're working on 10 technical background reports, which are in some stage at this point. So whether that means that we're currently drafting them, city staff is reviewing them, or the GPAC subcommittees are reviewing them. And then we'll have the diagnostic memo coming your way, as well as a public-facing summary that we're coordinating on right now so that we can have a visual document that really helps communicate a lot of the complexities of the general plan without really talking so much in terms of a general plan. So that's the idea there. And then only once we get through that kind of initial stage and we've got some of this outreach under our belt will we then start to craft the vision statement itself, the elements of the general plan itself, and the implementation program. So only after we've gotten through those phases. And then just for next steps, we have the resilience analysis that will be reviewed by the Natural Resources, Safety, and Harbor and Bay subcommittees, because that is not, that's one of those standout analyses, or it's not an element of the general plan. And then we also have the historical resources analysis that will be coming to the Historical Resources subcommittee.
Okay, thank you. Any comments? Charles, please.
I want to just confirm that the diagnostic memo that's coming is similar to the one that Jenna provided us through their subcontractor in the first go-round. Is it?
Yes, we'll be providing a breakdown of all of the kind of relevant legislative changes that you've been seeing as it relates to the elements that we're updating. You'll actually find that as you go through the background reports, you'll see that some of that work is already being done there, but we're carrying it over into that more formal diagnostic format.
Okay. I'm harping on this, if you will, because the last memo and the subcontractor that did it, it was great in how it told how each piece of legislation affected another. So there was a really easy to understand what it boiled down to from that memo that we still refer to. Of course, so much has happened since then. Thank you.
Okay, Susan, please.
I wanted to ask if these reports that will be, when they're ready to be reviewed by the subcommittees, are going to be put into a repository that the members of the committee can access?
Yes, confirming that they will be posted. Well, as we discussed at the last meeting, we'll put them on a link for the GPAC collectively to review. We won't be advertising it out as a final material because it's still under review by the subcommittee and the GPAC collectively, but we will post that online once they're available and ready.
Wonderful, thank you. Would it also, I think it could also include on that, however you're doing it, is it a Dropbox or something like that?
It would just be a link on the city's website, so hosted by the city's file service.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say that there could be, for each of the subcommittees, a folder where the subcommittee agendas and materials and meeting minutes could be going into that folder, those folders, and just generally be available.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. We'll look into that.
Please.
Chuck Vanger, as a member of the public, I'm equally interested in seeing the resiliency analysis, to use the current topic. And I wonder how it is that I can have access to it. And I want to share with the committee my experience on the Newport Together. I signed up back in December after a meeting here. To receive notices, have received nothing about this meeting or Nancy's meeting upcoming, so I'm just not getting stuff. I re-signed up today before I left the office just to say, let me rejigger this. The November and December reports on the update plan was on as documents online. My question becomes, will these updates that are released today, will they go online as documents that are accessible to the public? So I share that feedback with you. And I wonder, how can I get access to selfishly get access to the resiliency? I would like to be prepared before I go into the 3 committee meetings and have the background on that. And how can I be noticed as to when those meetings occur, other than begging Ben as to when they occur?
Good points. Ben, do you have any comments on that?
Sure. So the resilience report was actually part of the December GPAC agenda, which I know is not the greatest place to host those types of materials, but everything you see in the agenda packet is available online on the GPAC's website as agenda packets archived or current, and you can access every single material that's here. So these are publicly available. I think the idea is to post these reports in draft form without widely notifying the public that they're available. Now, if you have a keen interest, the best opportunity you have is to reach out to me. I try to be very accessible and responsive. So if you have a question, reach out to me anytime. I'm happy to ping you if there's something that's of interest to you and share that with you.
Append to my comments, I think the website, as I looked at it at 4:40 p.m. today, didn't list this meeting and other meetings that I could see on the face of the website, like I can on the city's website, where I can see meetings that are upcoming. And I think we need to clearly present that in the website. Meetings upcoming, documents that are real-time documents that are on the table in front of the community, and make sure that it's accessible to the public.
Thank you for the comment, and I'll get with the consultant team to make sure that the Newport Together website is continually evolving and meaningful moving forward. So just rest assured it's under construction, and once we hit that cadence moving forward, it'll be much smoother sailing, I promise.
Thank you, Chuck, for the comments. Yes, Jim, please, quickly.
Yeah, I concur with Susan's request that there be at least accessible to the committee members folders relevant to each of the subcommittees, so everybody, even if we're not on the subcommittee, can review what has been happening at them with some convenience. That would be helpful. And then I would note I did look at the Newport Together website this afternoon, and it has, looking for that repository, and it does have a tab that's called Documents and Resources or something. And under that, actually, the Resiliency Background Report and the Visioning Background Report have been posted in their current form. So they are under, I believe, Reports and Documents, or whatever it's called. Yeah, I do not believe they've been changed. So if they're draft documents and final documents, we probably at some point need to come to some understanding of when they show up on Newport Together and when they're in some other location.
Okay.
And whether there's a committee. I think I understand that there's supposed to be subcommittee review and then sign off by the whole committee, and then I would assume after that they're posted on Newport Together. But before that, they should be accessible to all the committee members and inquisitive public members as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Good comments. All right, seeing nothing else, we can move on to item 5, board committee announcements or matters which should be placed on a future agenda for discussion. Anything there? Charles, please.
I've got a question. Firstly, who's actually producing the EIR for this?
It's uncertain at this time what kind of SQL clearance will be required. The city is undergoing a parallel effort, again, adding to the confusion, for the Housing Element Implementation Program. And just a plug for that, the city is looking to release that draft program EIR on Monday next week. So the draft program EIR will come out the day before the council study session on the same topic of Housing Element Implementation Program. It's assumed that this effort could likely tear off of that document in some shape or form, but that depends on kind of collectively what happens through the update effort. If there's a need to add, square footage for commercial in some area, or if there's material changes that require more robust SQL clearance, that'll be determined at a later time based on the efforts that we do.
So you'll either issue a whole new EIR or you'll piggyback on this one.
Supplemental or something,
Okay.
potentially.
So along those lines, at this Tuesday's council meeting, the council is being asked to approve 2 projects in the airport area that are in the 65 CNEL. And the EIR that ultimately comes out, will it have to have mitigation for those projects, if approved, being in the 65 CNEL?
So the noise element and accompanying amendments were processed through council in November to adjust the contours such that those are no longer impacted by the 65 CNEL, if I'm understanding you correctly.
Okay, so
those have project-specific documents that have been completed, and those will not be contemplated directly by this program EIR.
So you're saying that at a later date, the city is going to contract the contours so that those projects aren't in the 65 that they're going to be possibly approved at Tuesday?
That was done in November 2023, just last year. Council made those amendments.
Okay. So that you're saying then that they won't have to mitigate them in a future EIR because they won't be within the contour.
Right, but as part of that noise element amendment, I would just point out that there were some additional attenuation measures and things put in place to require indoor-oriented living spaces that limit the amount of outdoor noise exposure. So council made a full sweep on those amendments in November last year.
All right, thank you.
Charles, thank you. Paul, please.
Yeah, Jeremy, I really apologize, but could I go back to the vision information real quick? I mean, I'm going to try to be very quick on this. First of all, I'm in favor of this matrix. It's just awesome. I don't think I had any changes at all to that. I think it was very well done. I was a little less enthusiastic about the so-called vision statement, existing conditions, and background analysis, and I wanted to make just a quick comment. I'm not familiar with the vocabulary of urban planning and general plans and emerging trends and all that kind of thing, but there were some vocabulary words in that analysis that I wanted to just raise. And again, I'm sitting close to the door for a good reason, so I can leave very quickly here. But what concerned me were the phrases inclusivity and social justice, environmental justice, climate change, and social equity. I think those words, and some of the really old people in Newport will feel that those are a little bit emotive words. They have a little bit of a bit of volatility to them. And in thinking about those phrases, I think I would have preferred to have said, instead of inclusivity and social justice, something like fundamental fairness to visitors, to residents, to businesses. Instead of environmental justice, I think we could say environmental stewardship, which appears in the matrix, by the way. Climate change, we've talked about the threat of resiliency throughout the general plan. I think that's the term that I think I would focus on were I to redo it. And social equity, again, fundamental fairness, I think, is something that is less emotive, let's say. And I think we would find that maybe some folks in our community would feel a little bit more comfortable with less attention-grabbing terms than the ones I've outlined. So I'm going to run for the...
All right. Quick, I'll give you 5 seconds. Chuck, please, quickly.
I will, quickly. I don't think... Hello. I sit on the other side of that equation. I'm a member of this community that if we aren't addressing what I believe are realities in the world that we live in, and we're sugarcoating them, that we're only doing ourselves a disservice. And I think climate change is real, and it doesn't matter what I think. It's a real topic, whether you believe in its origins or what caused it or whether or not it exists. Let's not try to bury things in the sand. Let's talk about what's real.
I do think that many of these are, those phrases in particular are directly, aren't they, from state documents that have said these are the things that have to be considered in a general plan today. I mean, we didn't talk about environmental justice in 2006, but that doesn't mean that we can't be very sensitive to the language. But we are, it's not something that this community just invented. It was something that's saying each general plan must address these issues in some way or another, so.
Okay. Okay, Ben.
Those phrases are all outlined very clearly in the trend report, which is something that's influencing our process to some degree, because it's sort of one of the better documents out there. I mean, the consultants can speak to it better than I can, but that's where those phrases are coming from.
Susan?
So I understand what you're saying, Paul. I think the issue is that they have specific definitions, and you can't really finesse the definitions, but you can couch the terminology, which may be partly what you're saying. But I will mention one thing, that both the mayor and one of the council members go to Mariners Church, which I do as well. Okay, and Sunday's message was exactly on this topic of, would you agree? Okay, I thought that was, you, okay, all right.
Any other Mr. Mosher, quickly? Thank you.
Yes, returning to the announcements, it went by kind of quick, so I don't know if all the committee members caught it correctly. But early in this committee's existence, we reviewed a matrix of suggested recommended changes to the land use element to implement the housing element that had been adopted. And that was narrowly endorsed by this committee. And it's been kind of in limbo for a long time. And on this coming Tuesday council meeting, it has been announced on the city website that we can anticipate that the council for the first time will actually be seeing those recommendations and holding a study session on those, as well as changes to the zoning code that would implement those housing overlays and so forth. And also some so-called objective design standards, I believe, are part of that package. And so that will be the first time the council is seeing that and discussing it, and to the extent we're interested in change to the general plan, those who are interested should tune in to see what the reaction is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mosher, for your comment. Any other comments? Lynn?
Just back to the, and we talked about this before, but trends are trends, right? So there were different trends pre-pandemic, and we've got different trends post-pandemic, and there are a lot of, it is important, I think, that whatever language we use, that we make sure that it's relevant to the Newport Beach general plan, not necessarily being driven by, you know, I get that it's a trend report, there has to be some consistency, I guess, across the state, but I agree that there could be other language used. I mean, and maybe it's just what I do for a living, but I mean, how you word these things should be relevant on both sides. Whatever you believe is what you believe. But I also think that it's important. It's like the difference between journalism and being just somebody that has an opinion. One is fact-based and research, and the other is just somebody's opinion. So I think we just want to be careful about, you know, what is the most relevant to Newport Beach and its residents, past, present, and future, for sure. So.
Thank you, Lynn. Any other comments? Okay. Well, I think that I'd just like to say very briefly that maybe in a footnote somewhere, some of these terms could be, you know, just very, very nicely detailed, right?
At the very minimum, they should be explained so that when a person hears them,
Mm-hmm. Right, they should be.
When a person hears these phrases or tries to apply them, like if we're asking our community to give us the opinion about something that we've handed to them in a certain type of language, they should be able to readily identify how that affects their life. What does that phrase mean? I hear a lot of phrases in my day-to-day world, and I often have to clarify, well, what do you mean by sustainability? If you're talking about high density housing and you put sustainability in that phrase, what are you talking about? What are you referring to? And how should people take what we're giving them or take what we're recommending and apply it to their lives, relevant to this city, this community, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. All right. No other comments? Okay, very good. Okay, back to our future agenda items. I noticed that in next steps, there is a historical resources analysis review. The committee is arts, culture, and historical resources. So will all of that be referenced? Will we be meeting in a subcommittee meeting? Ben? Yes.
So, yeah, I'm good. Thank you. So with next steps, I think through this meeting, you've kind of seen how these will hopefully flow through the GPAC moving forward. You saw the reference to the resilience report, which I know has been sent out to the Natural Resources Subcommittee. The liaison for that subcommittee has moved on from the city, and so there are some changes, as Mr. Mosier alluded to the staff liaisons for that subcommittee, and they'll be working to schedule a subcommittee meeting for them February. So ideally, we'll meet with the Safety Subcommittee, the Natural Resources and Recreation Subcommittee, as well as the Harbor and Bay Subcommittee this month prior to the next GPAC meeting. And then the Historical Resources, I don't think you'll see Arts and Culture at the same time. It'll just be too much to have both of those documents, but that subcommittee will have the Historical Resources document to review prior to bringing that to the full GPAC. So in February, you'll see resilience and historical resources kind of flowing through the subcommittees for now.
Okay, so it will just be then historical resources, but when it comes to the full committee, we will have also considered arts and culture and historical resources? Or
not concurrently. So you'll have, they're separate elements. Okay. We've combined the subcommittees out of both convenience for staff and also topical areas that kind of blend together. So you will see arts and cultural separate from historical resources at a later time. Okay, good.
It would be nice to have things, unfolding at the same time we're going out into the community with outreach, and arts, and the arts are very much at the top of the priority list for elements. So thank you. Yeah. Now we know. All right. Anything else that needs to be added to the next agenda? All right. If there's nothing further to report, let's adjourn the meeting. Thank you. And thank you, staff, committee members, and committee and subcommittees who've met and brought the details to this meeting that made it so productive. Thank you.